Hello, everyone. Helen Yu here at RSAC in San Francisco. I'm joined by Michael Leland, who is the field CTO of Island. Michael, so nice to meet you in person.
And you as well, Helen. Thank you.
AI or governing AI, it has been the hardest problems enterprises are wrestling with today. I heard all these three exciting announcements from Island last week, so let's unpack that a little bit today. But before we do that, I'll let you introduce yourself and then tell us more about what Island does and who it serves too.
Sure. So I joined Island about 2 years ago as field CTO. I joined.
You're quite well known in the industry.
Tell
us more.
I've been around a while.
Yeah.
So prior to this, I was chief strategy officer and evangelist at Sentinel One. So I've got the EDR side and security operations practice underneath. Before that, I was co-founder and CTO of a company called Nitro Security before we got acquired by McAfee.
Yep.
I was CTO of Avaya many years ago, but I actually got my start in this industry in the early 90s at a company called Cabletron Systems.
Okay.
So I've got networking, network security, cybersecurity, security operations, and now executive experience under my belt.
Wow, very impressive. So tell us more about Island.
So Island, I had a chance to see Island about 3 years ago. And this is when they were, they had come out of stealth. They had just announced the fact that they had invented a new segment called the enterprise browser. In fact, Gartner created the enterprise browser segment for Island when it was introduced. And I saw it about 3 years ago, and I thought it's interesting, but who's buying another browser these days? And then I had a chance to wait about a year and see the technology again. And what impressed me the most, and what actually convinced me to want to come to be a part of this journey, is the velocity of innovation. They have gone from building a secure enterprise browser, and they started branching off into meaningful and intentional adjacencies. And we'll talk about that, in fact, as it relates to the most recent announcement, the platform announcement. What's interesting to know is, while the announcement just came out that we are now a platform, that has actually been part of our journey this whole time. We built the technology as a horizontal platform from day one. Single code base, single policy, single control plane. And what's interesting is we've been able to expand it horizontally to include not only more capabilities, but then vertically to address newer and newer use cases. So for instance, our customers told us they were unhappy with the cost and complexity of VPNs, right? And they don't like the poor user experience of, let's say, a traditional legacy ZTNA solution. So we introduced our own SASE capabilities, and you also saw the announcement about our network, which will include everything. What we have right now on the stack is things like ZTNA, RBI, which is remote browser isolation, CASB, and secure web gateway. And you'll see more innovation happening on the network side. But we already replace customers' VPNs. We already allow customers who either don't have a ZTNA solution yet to enter it in a more modern approach. And those customers who have already made investments in those solutions, looking back at the tech debt that they've created by those deployments and the poor user experience that is created, we offer a meaningful solution to have an alternative.
Wow, that customer-centric approach is so important for scaling, right? So let's set back a little bit. Those three announcements you just made, AI governance, the SASE, and then unified platform all at once. Tell us a little bit more about what's the through line here.
Yeah, so when I say that we've been a platform the whole time, but we're just making the announcement now, I think it's an important part, because every new capability we introduce, AI governance is a great example, network is a great example. It leverages the building blocks that we've already been introducing to the technology across the last 3 and 4 years of development. AI is one that leverages almost all of the various building blocks. It can leverage our network stack to enable secure and governed MCP connectivity. It leverages things like our remote browser isolation for remote agent capabilities. Inherently, what we built 3, 4, 5 years ago now is this concept of an application data boundary, right? And that's the most important thing that separates an enterprise browser from a consumer browser, or the menagerie of different technologies you've pieced together over the years. Is we build this concept of a secure enclave. And so by policy, you define what lives inside that data boundary. And by nature of what lives inside it, we can govern what data can leave. So AI governance was just an extension of our data policy, our data protection policy, our last mile controls, which are things like governing cut, copy, paste, file, print, save, all the things that would normally take data out of the governed environment. We built a secure password manager and a privilege access management solution, which all by itself is a great product, but when you attach that to your AI initiative, you can now issue credentials to Agentic AI. But that concept of a data boundary, I think, is most critical when you think about Agentic. When you build a policy that restricts or governs what a single user is allowed to do, what applications they're allowed to access, how they're allowed to interact with data, how they can move data between inside and outside that boundary, you've built the concept and the construct for a data governance policy. When you align that to AI, it means now that all user-based AI interactions, whether it's hands on keyboard going into a generative AI tool, whether it's an agentic tool that's going to operate on behalf of that user, regardless of those different modalities, that data boundary has to be honored.
You know, that digital experience, right? Seamless digital experience sounds very easy, but it can be super complex, cumbersome if it's not set up correctly.
Yes. Digital experience was a really interesting adjacent solution that we introduced. In the past, digital experience, which sometimes would be performed with things like application performance monitoring, they were measuring application response time from a POP, right? So generate a synthetic test from this POP to an app, and then from this POP to an app, and then average those and say, this is what your experience is. But the real world experience is what the user perception is. And the user's perception is, how long does it take from the time I hit enter to the time I get the first painted screen?
I heard if for an average 3-second wait time is the limit, right? Users can really bear.
Yeah. In fact, there have been studies by people like Google and Amazon that talk about for every 100 milliseconds of delay, how much revenue could be lost in transactions, how much trail off you get from people that leave your site because it seems too slow.
Yeah.
But digital experience is not just the application responsiveness. It's got a lot to do with the local device. Remember, applications that are performing slowly from the user's perception isn't always the application's problem. Sometimes it's the network's problem. Sometimes it's the end user compute.
Exactly.
And
but
so
user doesn't care. They don't care.
That's
right?
exactly right.
Yeah.
But who does care is the help desk.
Yes.
Right? Because when you're calling in saying, I'm having a problem, they need more than just that synthetic test result.
Exactly.
They can also look at the telemetry that we generate from the device, CPU utilization, memory utilization, Wi-Fi signal strength.
You showed it to me last week, right?
That's right.
Quite impressive.
So now you've got all of that telemetry that you can make a more relevant and prescriptive response to exactly what's happening. What's coming next, by the way, which is really cool, we're going to start capturing application resource metrics as well. So not just device resource, but application. Okay. So when a user's experiencing a degradation in speed, the analyst can say, is it the application? No. Is it the network? No. Is it your device?
Okay.
Maybe. Are you too far away from your Wi-Fi hotspot? Or is Chrome.exe taking up 40% of your memory?
Okay.
Right? And being able to see all that and parse that out. Then we're also adding later this month enterprise grade OS query.
Wow.
So you can actually run your own performance queries, you can run your own analysis, pull that back and generate prescriptive insights.
That's awesome. You know, the browser is where AI touches work, right? What can Island do or see and control where no one else can do?
So here's the important thing about AI. There's two really important things. One, AI, as you said, is its natural habitat is the browser, right? That's where people engage with generative AI. It's where they initiate agentic transactions. And the reason that's relevant is if your only enforcement mechanism is up in the cloud, if you're sending all your data into a POP where it's going to get broken and inspected, you're already too far away from the behavior. The behavior that actually can indicate user intent is between me and the glass, right? What other tabs do I have open? What applications are looking at files locally on my file system? There's no way to get that information if you're waiting for it to hit a POP, right?
Yeah.
But agentic is interesting because whereas most of the industry has gone from a thick app to a SaaS, AI within the last 12 months very quickly went from SaaS to desktop.
Yeah.
Right. Claude Code, Gemini CLI. So Whereas most organizations are saying all my things are going into the cloud, AI is pushing more and more things down to the endpoint. So as this pendulum has been swinging from centralization to decentralization, from centralized compute to distributed compute, AI is bringing distributed compute back into the scene.
That makes sense. Speaking of agentic AI, right? Not, human wouldn't be the only ones that get into the browser. What if, agents get in the browser? Does your governance model still hold?
So there's really two important things about this. One is instant visibility, right? Shadow IT, we've been solving or chasing that problem for a decade, right? Identifying sanctioned AI or sanctioned tools versus unsanctioned IT tools and steering people away from the ones we don't want them to use into the ones that we've agreed on.
Yeah.
AI and shadow AI quickly hit the scene. We had a customer that told us they had 6 AI tools sanctioned.
That's it.
And then we deployed our extension, and they had 243.
Wow.
So the shadow AI is a bigger problem than most organizations are comfortable admitting, and you can't protect what you don't know, right? So visibility is the most important thing first. But that concept of the application data boundary, if we've built the policy right to authorize specific applications, and we know that it can't break outside that guardrail, then agentic AI must also live within those same parameters. Here's a great story. So last year, I can't remember if it was RSA or Black Hat.
Yeah.
We started looking at this agentic behavior, and the first transactional agentic behavior that we saw were things like, I want to go to a movie this Friday. I want to find the 8 o'clock show time of this. I want to invite 3 of my friends, and I want you to purchase 4 tickets. That's a consumer implementation of agentic.
Yep.
And so what have I just given access to? I get access to my search, my contacts, and my processing transaction, my credit card, right? Not too risky for a single user. But if you extend that to the enterprise, all of a sudden that you're breaking that trust boundary and giving control to something that is not fully tested, is not built to work within specific guardrails. And so, the opportunity for some massive data loss, probably not malicious at first, probably just a misconfiguration of an MCP server, is a real risk. So by putting guardrails on these agents, it allows you to have the confidence to safely adopt and enable AI while providing both the visibility and the guardrails against it going, going off the rails.
Yeah, totally agree. I think AI or agentic AI is a double-edged sword. Right?
Yes.
If I were a CISO, right, coming to the job like first week, they're walking in with 40 unsanctioned AI tools already. What can Island do for me week 1?
So I mentioned visibility is paramount, right? You have to know what your problem is to know where your gaps are that you need to close. So the first thing is the quicker the possible to get a full inventory of what the exposure looks like. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is working with your governance team to identify what is acceptable, which providers are sanctioned, which models are approved for different personas. And then identify through visibility those opportunities where you can say, I've got a handful of people going over to Grok. Maybe I don't authorize Grok, and I need to steer those users back into my sanctioned tools.
Open cloud.
Yes. One of the most important things, though, is application tenancy.
Yeah.
It's impossible to tell from the URL whether Gemini.google.com is a business licensed tenant or Gemini.google.com is a personal tenant. Island has the distinction. It knows
That's
who
my
you are.
favorite part of Island. I've never found.
Exactly, which means you can assert a very different policy appropriate to a business world and a personal world. The most important thing that we love to say, we have any number of use cases from trusted SaaS onboarding to contractors and third parties. But the most, I think, exciting use case for me to walk into a CISO's office and tell them is called the say yes use case.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
IT and security have long been the department of no, right? No, you can't because I won't have visibility. No, you can't because I don't have compensating controls or governance.
Yeah.
But imagine if you could say yes, but I'm going to put guardrails on your implementation. Yes, but it's going to be this AI tool, not that one. If with this shadow IT problem, this IT sprawl, Most organizations are playing whack-a-mole, right? Waiting for new ones to pop up and hitting it down.
Yeah.
We believe that, you shouldn't have to say no to everything
Yeah.
if you feel confident that the policy you've built and deployed is being enforced appropriately. The most important thing about the Island Enterprise browser is policy is evaluated and enforced locally, not in the cloud, not in the POP. If you have to break and inspect, I think you're already behind the eight ball.
That's a great framework, right? Now I can bring single laptop on vacation with my personal tenant and the professional one too.
I tell executives all day long, are you happy carrying two phones and a business laptop and a personal laptop? Imagine if you could you can carry one that's governed across the entire enterprise.
Exactly. I already learned so much from you, Michael. I love this conversation, but in interest of time, my last question here is 5 years from now, how does enterprise security stack looks like, and where would Island fit in?
So the most significant contribution that Island has built, one, the platform allows you to have a single policy, a single control plane, and a single source of truth for all telemetry. So if you look out 5 years, the enterprise has already adopted the browser as the new endpoint.
Yeah.
But it's not going to go all browser because AI told us or taught us recently there's going to be more things that need to run desktop centric as well.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is find a way to create as much as possible an immutable platform that says you're allowed to do these things but not those, which means it's not just browser governance, it's also desktop and endpoint governance. And so I think what you're going to see more so is organizations that are tired of the tech debt that they've amassed over the last decade or more, throwing together point solutions, throwing 8 or 10 different agents on the desktop, which creates a poor user experience and performance challenges and everything else. 5 years from now, I think we start imagining a world where a single platform, control plane, telemetry source drives the best value, drives cost and complexity out of the scenario, provides the highest level of fidelity that we can use to make actionable, prescriptive insights.
Not at expense of user experience.
User experience is first and foremost for us.
Cool.
And I believe there are two end users whose experience greatly needs to improve. There's the knowledge worker that's sitting on this side of the glass using the browser and the desktop for general purpose application access. It's also the admins, the ones sitting behind policy. If I have to train my security operations practitioners on 8, 10, 12 different solutions, if my cyber team needs to learn 5 different control planes and policy, that doesn't scale. So I think the centralization, the reduction of cost and complexity, the reduction of control planes is where this industry has to go.
Yeah, we may have our agent talking to each other by then.
Very, very true. Yes.
Thank you so much, Michael. I really enjoyed our conversation here.
Thank you, Pella. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.